Hello, I'm so glad that you are here. Thanks for joining again for another episode of Gathered Glow. I want to share a little context about me. We've spent a couple weeks together now, and I want to make sure that you know who I am, what this is about. And if you're new here, then hey, you will be caught up. My name is Jackie Price. I have spent the last decade in corporate learning and development. I work with leaders to help them grow, stretch, and step into bigger responsibilities. I love business, I love systems, and I love seeing people maximize their skills and step into all of their power in a sustainable way. But there's another layer to me that I haven't always talked about as openly. I didn't make a career out of it, and that is definitely the spiritual side of me. And I don't even love using the word like spiritual side. I feel like I only have to use that for the comfort of others. Because for me, it's just how I see. It's how I see, feel, think, interact with the world. There's no other side of it. It is the lens that I have. It's like someone who, hears music, but they see colors. That's just how I work. I see energy. I understand it. It communicates. It's intelligent. We're very connected. And so I think sometimes people try to put the spiritual side in like a box or a framework of like, oh, you just believe in this and it fits neatly in this box, when really it doesn't. When really half the time I look at science and I'm like, I'm just waiting for you to catch up a little bit. And stop dismissing pieces of this because you can't prove it. Follow the thread. And I look at religion, I'm like, yes, you've said so much exactly correctly. However, when people interpret it, they're interpreting it as a story and not a story that is there to tell them a deeper truth. And then there's my vision, which is just somehow a bridge of multiple sides. And so, because I don't necessarily know exactly how to frame what I see and feel in a way that's labeled nicely and put into a box for others, this podcast is me expressing to you in a space where I care about sustainable success and leadership, where I care about where energy is going, how it's housed. Sometimes I will reference God and spirituality. If you have the eyes to see how these things are interwoven, you're in the right place. Follow along. And today specifically, as I'm creating this space for us to bridge these worlds from high-performing leaders to invisible infrastructures and everything in between, I wanted to talk about communication beyond words and how everything communicates, not just people, and what we might really be missing if we rely on the most obvious senses. So, I'm not a scientist, I will say that. I'm not a scientist, but obviously we are all made of matter. We understand that matter emits light, right? People don't go around, you don't see me and you think, wow, glowing. I'm not a light bulb, right? It doesn't look like the sun when you see most people. They can go into a dark room and you're not going to see them. However, we know that there's only a small portion of the light spectrum that's even visible to our own eyes. And so in knowing that, I want to talk about communication. So I'm not going to talk about light today, but I'm going to talk about communication. Because I think there's a small spectrum where people think communication is strictly, what you can see, sometimes the visual that you see communicated, or hear, or read, right? So the obvious forms of our senses, how we communicate. But I think that there's more dimensions to communication. And not to call on my Disney queen Pocahontas, but sometimes I think you actually have to listen with your heart. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I want to give you examples from my own life about why I think this really matters. I can't tell you exactly how to turn up the volume and listen or be more into. I could tell you some tips about how, but that's not what I'm here to do today. Tonight, I want to ask you a simple question. If you did listen to the world around you, not with your eyes or your ears, but just with your heart, what would it say? We rely so heavily on our senses that I think we've turned down the volume of other senses. And I want to give an example because I know everything communicates, first of all. The people who are out there talking to trees, thank you, science, for finally catching up that trees can communicate. They do communicate. People have known this for a very long time, but then it's been dismissed, and others who don't know how to perform the right studies, or it's not easy to measure in the way that they think it should be measured, took them a long time to realize, like, okay, plants are responding to the way that we talk to them, to the music that we play for them. There's been some studies about like how food even expires and how mold is growing on things based on the conversations being had with the different sample groups. Everything is communicating. And we think that we're just communicating outward, but they can also communicate back to us. Everything. Anything that is considered matter. Maybe beyond matter. Hold on. Oh, okay. But I'm going to stay on this track. I don't want this to be written off. And I think in future episodes, I will focus more on the leadership side of the skills that I want to share. But today it's important for me to share about a particular story. This was years ago. This might have been like 8 years ago now. I'll find the exact post and share with you. But I was living in an apartment and I was walking my dog around, and it was very cold weather. And I noticed a black cat hanging out. And this cat was talking to me. And when it talks, it's not using words. Just like how trees talk, it's a feeling conveyed, right? It's not necessarily, for me, it's not sentences. It's more of like feelings sent. Almost as if, you hear the stories of like a mother who wakes up out of her sleep and is like, I need you to come home right now. Like you just get a feeling and it's like a knowingness. Or you just, something just hits you and you're like, I gotta listen to this. That's what it feels like. So this cat was hanging around outside of this apartment, and it was so friendly. It was coming up to me. It was rubbing up on my leg. It was talking to me. And for days, it was there. Same time, same place. Never seen it before. Showed up. I tried to bring it inside a couple days because it was very cold. Create a little home for it, give it some food. And it did stay on my balcony and in my place a little bit. And then during the day, I would let it roam. And so it would do this, but it was hanging around particularly one apartment. And it was like walking to me to walk over to this apartment. So I kept wondering, like, okay, what's going on? Do you need something? Are you trying to tell me something? And I would just stand out there with it. And finally, one day, the woman who lived in the apartment where this cat is hanging around came out and said, oh, you've noticed this cat too. It's been hanging around for a while. I was like, yeah, I know. It's a new addition to our community. I haven't seen it before. And I got to talking to her, and the woman who lived in that apartment shared with me that her fiance had passed away in that apartment just a few days before, had a seizure and fell, and her son, who was very young, was home and unable to do anything but witnessed it. And she was going through a really hard time and was needing to move out. Um, and I was like, this cat is telling me to tell you these things. Can I pray with you? Can I sit with you? Can I talk? And so we did talk, and we met and um, shared her story and what was going on and prayed. But that cat told me, hey, come here. I'm getting your attention. There's energy here that I need help with. And so I think there's a lot to that, but one of the most significant parts is I wanted to rehome this cat, and so I posted on Facebook a picture of it, and I had someone respond and say, I'll take it. And this cat showed up every day for almost the entire week, every single day. And the day that someone said, hey, I'll come and get this cat, I let the cat go. I said, it's always been here when I get back, but if it's not, then it's not meant to be. I never saw that cat again. Gone. Well, yeah. I think it's situations where we are so interconnected. It makes me kind of sad right now, with everything going on. That seems to be one of our greatest power as people, but we're not harnessing it or using it in a way that helps. And so I want to know, well, I'd like to know if you believe animals talk. That's one story. I got so many. My dog talks to me. That's how I got him. He said, I'm going home with you. Come on, lady. You get with it or you get out. And all things talk. Trees talk, water talks, wind talks, stars. People talk without saying a word. Mm. So what if Pocahontas was right? What if you need to listen with your heart? What would your heart say? We're in such a mind-driven place right now. I think that the mind is like the ruler of everything, but if you've used ChatGPT lately, then I feel like the mind is like ChatGPT. Sophisticated in some regard. Amazing. I mean, the mind is better than ChatGPT, but your mind is formed by the information that you intake. Your thoughts are formed by what you experience, observe, are informed by. And what you conclude is to be your own thoughts might not be your own thoughts. It may be the seeds that were given to you. The heart, I think we can put walls around and guard and protect or close off from. And I think it's easier to do those things because when it speaks and when it listens, it doesn't have the same filter inputs as our mind. It's purer, it's truer. And I think that's why we might protect it so much. But when you bring those walls down from protecting it, it can speak to you. One of the things that I experienced, and I shared an experience of enlightenment, was that for months after, I just could see my thoughts. Like I was like above, like observing, like very calmly, like, oh, that's just a thought. And I could see that those thoughts weren't all me. Like it came from me, right? I made it. But that they weren't me. I think our mind is pretty vast, right? There's like the thoughts that we think, and then you go to bed and you have a dream, you're like, I don't know Spanish, and then you have a dream, you're like, I know I was speaking pretty impressive Spanish in that dream. So I just want us to consider that what we acknowledge having access to inside of us, around us, is only a sliver, almost like the spectrum of light that we can see that's visible. You know, there's X-rays and gamma rays and microwaves and all of these other waves that are considered light on the spectrum, but you don't see it. But that doesn't mean that it's not there, that it's not light. So tonight, if your heart could speak, what would it say to you? If the animals around you could speak, what are they telling you? I think that one of the best ways, I said I didn't know how to access this, but the truth is, I think when you in good faith put yourself out there for anything is the best step. So maybe you don't know how to hear what matter is saying to you, but maybe you start talking to it. And I will say that, like, as much as, I shared the cat story, but I'll say, and I've told other people this, trees have a real sense of humor too. They can be very funny. Like very, very funny, very encouraging, very uplifting. Um, they have personalities. It's kind of fun. And okay, this is why I don't share all of this often. Because I do acknowledge that some people are going to be like, "What? That's a little crazy to think." And that's okay that people think that. You know, I felt that too. But it's true. Time and time again, it's true. So I want you to think about, what is your heart saying to you? You may have closed off being able to listen. No, you haven't closed it off. You've just been ignoring it. I said I like systems and infrastructure, and I really do. I really do. And one of the most important systems that you have is involving your heart. Mm. Some of these episodes, I don't know the direction it's going to fully take. But I'm so thrilled and honored that you have joined this journey and that you've been open minded to discussions that may push the boundaries of what you're comfortable thinking about or what you've come to know. If your heart is saying anything to you right now, I hope it's saying that I'm proud of you for just being open, for just receiving and not having to judge. That's a gift in itself. I appreciate you all. Thanks for listening to this episode, and I'll see you next week for another episode of Gathered Glow. I'm Jackie Price, and I'll see you soon.